Well, welcome everyone. Today's August 8th, 2024, and I'm pleased to bring a topic today that we've never trained on before, but we've seen some wonderful changes into the program recently, and we wanted to highlight the opportunity to businesses in Washington State, and that is the DoD Mentor Protege Program. And here with us to lead the training is Mary Jo Juarez with the Washington Apex Accelerator. I'll turn it over to Mary Jo to lead us through the slides.
Hey, thank you, Tiffany. If you could go to the next slide, please. Okay, so this is basically our agenda. And I heard there are some of you who are fairly new and some of you who are experienced, and we're actually going to talk about a couple of other things in addition to this agenda that will help those of you who are new understand what parts of government contracting is about. So we're going to talk about what the DoD Mentor Protege Program is, who can participate, commitments, benefits. I always discuss risk because anytime that you are working with the federal government, you need to understand what your risks are, how to get started. I'm going to talk a bit about what a subcontracting plan is and how you can incorporate that into your marketing, because that's also part of this program. And then at the very end, I'm going to end it with a few minutes discussing how to find a mentor. And it's not going to be your usual go to a conference and find a mentor, because that just doesn't work. So we'll talk about that as we get close to the end. Could I get the next slide, please? Okay, so this program is the oldest mentor protege program that there is. It was started in 1991 during the Iraq War. And the whole purpose behind it was that Congress understands that the basis of the American economy is truly the small businesses. You are the most agile, you can respond quickly, you can pivot quickly, and most of the people who are employed by small businesses. So it's a program to help small businesses to get into government contracts, in particular DoD. It's very different from the SBA Mentor Protege Program. I'm not going to discuss that program today, but the biggest difference is DoD is full of metrics and full of processes. Okay. Next slide, please. Okay, so the agreement length is 2 to 3 years, and I do want to mention that DoD is trying currently to strengthen the program. So they're in the process of making a couple changes, and one of them is probably going to be the agreement length. Just so you know, some areas of recent development were involved cybersecurity, testing, manufacturing, research and development, and some specific impacts to the Navy. They had a small business that went in with a prime and upgraded their air traffic control systems. They changed out their radar, and the small business was also the lead in changing the whole Navy personnel and pay system so that people could get paid quicker without all the mistakes that were being made in the old system. Okay, next slide, please. Okay, so as a protege, you need to be a small business where your NAICS code determines whether you're a small business or not, and it's based on dollars or number of people that you employ. So you have to be half of what that NAICS code is, which is actually pretty easy for a lot of small businesses. And this is something that we can help you with. Your Apex counselor can help you determine this, and we can work with you on that. And there can't be a connection between your company and the prime that you're going to be looking at, whether it's through stocks, bonds, people. There can be no connection. And the reason for this is because there has been problems in the past. And I truly believe that the government and all the regulations are based on things that went wrong in the past versus looking forward. Something goes wrong, then we get a new FAR clause, then we get a new regulation. And that's just the way it operates. Okay, next slide, please. So basically, this is just a continuation on of the eligibility requirements. You basically have to be a small business. You can be owned by an Indian tribe. You can be an organization that employs severely disabled individuals, women-owned, veteran-owned, hub zone-owned, or DoD is also looking at a non-traditional defense contractor, which of those small businesses that may not want to necessarily do business with the government, but they usually have a technology or a service that DoD wants pretty badly, so they will go to them to get that particular service. There's one. I remember I dealt with a contractor who provided a certain set of doors for the military all around the globe, all around the world. And these doors were super strong and they protected from any number of things, but they were the only manufacturer in the whole world who built these doors. And when the Navy needed those doors for a building, they went out of their way to go down there and put whatever they had to in place to get those doors from that particular contractor who didn't necessarily want to do business with the government. So it just comes down to that you currently have goods and services that are critical to enhancing the capabilities of DoD. Next slide, please. Okay, so who can be a mentor? Well, a mentor must be eligible for award of a federal contract. Mentors, the first part of this is a mentor has to be approved by DoD, and they have their own process that they go through for that to happen. They have to show that they can provide assistance to you. In other words, they can't just say, I want to be a DoD mentor. If they're going to be providing assistance to you in accounting, they have to have people who not only know government accounting systems, but can actually teach and show you those accounting systems. They have to follow all the other rules, like be in good financial health, not be suspended. They have to show that they can provide the information you need, the skills and tools that you need to them. They have to have received DoD contracts totaling $100 million in the previous fiscal year. They're generally a large business, and they have to have an active subcontracting plan. And I'm going to take just a minute and explain the importance of the subcontracting plan to you. Anytime that an agency wants to put a contract out there, they start doing market research. And that's when you see sources sought on SAM. Because if they do a sources sought and 2 or more small businesses come back and they're qualified to do the work, generally the work goes to a small business. Most of the work is meant to go to small businesses. Items that may set it aside for large businesses are when the dollar value is so high that a small business cannot do it, when it's an item of national security, or when it's a project where there are so many moving parts or so many subcontractors that there's a concern that a small business is not going to be able to handle all the moving parts. So the agency sends the plan of what they're doing over to the SBA, and the SBA is the only agency who can stop the Navy, the Air Force, or any government agency from going forward with their acquisition plans and putting a contract out there. And a lot of times, if it goes, well, every time it becomes a project that's going to go to a large business, it becomes a negotiation between the contracting officer and the SBA, because then a subcontracting plan has to put in place. There is a FAR requirement for a certain dollar level of the subcontracting dollars to go to small businesses, but the contracting officer has the leverage to increase that based on their own marketing efforts to whatever level they want. And I think the highest that I saw was that 77% of the subcontracting dollars were going to small businesses. And so as long as you understand the subcontracting plan and the opportunities for subcontracting, you're not leaving dollars on the table. Now, the person that you generally deal with a lot of times that you'll meet in the public, and the individual who's responsible for maintaining the subcontracting plan and making sure that the prime meets that subcontracting plan, is a small business liaison officer, the SBLO. And that person is going to be both the most wonderful person that you meet and totally the most annoying person that you ever meet. Okay, they're going to be wonderful because they have all this information about their agency and they can help you. They're going to be annoying because they cannot give you a contract. They cannot make any commitment. They can't promise anything. And there's certain things that they're definitely not allowed to share until the contracting process becomes public. But they are your point of contacts, and they're super important. The subcontracting plans, one of the last things I did before I retired from the government was I sent a letter out to a prime contractor telling them that they owed me $20 million back on a project because they had not subcontracted out the $20 million that they had promised that they would in their subcontracting plan. And there were quite a few bad moments associated with that because the president of the company got on his private jet and flew up to meet with us. But it turned out to be really, really good because now that business is one of our most proactive businesses and working with the APACs. And they totally get how important the subcontracting plan is. And I have been in many conferences where a prime will stand up and say, hey, we lost a huge project in Guam because we didn't meet our subcontracting plan. So it's really important for you to know how critical that is. And when you market to the primes, it's also really important if you're all small businesses, number one. Okay. And then if you're woman-owned, if you're service-disabled veteran, whatever else you are, it's more blocks for them to meet. So when you talk with them, you can even say, hey, look, I'm not only woman-owned, I'm minority-owned, I'm a service-disabled vet, whatever it is that you happen to be. So that's my story on subcontracting plans and how it all interconnects with this. Again, the mentor must complete an application. They can only have one DoD active mentor agreement at the time. And both the mentor and the protege are going to have to do twice a year reports. If we could go to the next slide, please. Okay, so when we send these slides out to you, you'll be able to go in and look at this list. They have not only put the list of the active approved mentors on their website, which I'm going to talk a little bit later about how you can use this list when you're out at events and whatnot. But they've also got up-to-date phone numbers and contacts where you can personally call and email the different branches of DoD and speak to the people who are handling their mentor protege program for their agency. Okay, next slide, please. Okay, so there is a commitment for both sides. The first statement here, the assistance to be provided should be based on the needs assessment of the protege. Basically, you need to know what it is that you need. Okay, they can help you with a lot of things that the APACs cannot help you with. Okay, they have payroll systems. They can back bond. A lot of them provide legal assistance in various situations. They can help you set up your processes. There's a lot that we do, but if you're going to be looking at a mentor protege program, talk to your APACs because there's a lot of other things that you may need. If you don't think there's anything you need, we can help you with that. The mentor protege agreement it's a marriage, and it requires courtship. And I'm going to go into that at the very end when we talk about this. A lot of times the mentor is more comfortable selecting proteges from the supplier base that they currently have, because those are people that have provided things to them and done it on time, within budget, consistently, and that's who they're comfortable with. So when we talk about finding a mentor, again, we'll address this a bit. You should be marketing, of course, to large primes for subcontracting opportunity and partnerships, and just continue to perform and grow and establish yourself within the DoD marketplace or as a candidate for this program. Could we have the next slide, please, Tiffany? Okay, so Department of Defense, basically in a nutshell, is going to gain the technology and services, products that small businesses have that big businesses may not have, because small businesses have the ability to see something out there and dive into it, whereas in a large business, it's a whole big animal that everybody, they might have to have meetings, they might have to go to their business development, they might have to go to their accounting, where small business can just stand up and say, I'm going to do this. And so that's the biggest benefit to Department of Defense is access to you. Okay, next slide, please. Now the mentor is going to be able to develop long-term relationships, develop their database, and they're going to have teaming opportunities with a protege to get new contracts or subcontracts that they may not currently be allowed to play in that particular field. So when you have a small business and a large business teamed in this program, the large business can assist with small business projects that the mentor and the protege may be able to win. There are several types of mentor protege programs. There is a reimbursable, where the mentor is reimbursed the cost of direct labor and other direct approved costs that are incurred as they're working with a protege. They can also get credit to that subcontracting plan that we talked about a few minutes ago. And then there's a hybrid that involves both money and credit. And that's the one that I believe DoD is looking at going on at now. Now, the issue with money is that there is a certain pot of money put aside at the beginning of the year, and when the money is gone, the money is gone. And the amount of money they put aside depends. So a lot of the large primes know that. And so if you're working to set this up, it would be a good idea to start working early in the year for the next year when the money's available. We do the next slide, please. Oops, I already did this slide. I'm sorry. I forgot I have the slide. We just talked about this, the three types of mentor protege plans. Okay, could we do the next slide, Tiffany? Okay. So the protege is going to receive relevant technical and business assistance, provided that the protege knows what they need and they ask for it. And this agreement is going to be in writing, and you need to make sure that what you need is written into the agreement. You will be positioned for prime contracting opportunities, long-term relationships, we've talked about that, teaming opportunities, and again, to improve the DoD industrial base. Okay, next slide. Now there are risks. And this is, you need to know this, because this is basically, it's just taking care of your business, taking care of yourself. But once you get super busy in something, in a program like this, or you get super busy in a contract, a lot of small businesses tend to forget that. There are huge metrics with DoD. There are reports that need to be done. There are items that need to be tracked. It's a commitment. It's going to take you time above your regular, the work that you're normally doing. It's going to take you time to keep track of everything. And it's difficult to remember that when you really get busy. I have found that the proteges that are really good and succeed at this, and also the mentors, have a system for tracking real time the different things that they have done to meet the requirements of this program. Because you get to that 6-month period and suddenly you have a report due, and then you're thinking, oh my goodness, what have I done? But you've done so many things between the time you start and when your reporting time is, that if you're not keeping track of it, they tend to drop off and be replaced by all the other things that are in your mind now that are going on currently. You are also responsible for ensuring that all the regulations, rules, and processes are followed. And if you end up in a mentor protege program and you need help from an APACS, that particular area is something that we can help you with, is with the regulations, rules, and the processes. And we actually, I personally have helped a lot of primes, or, even this past year, several primes with doing their reports. Because it's not something you do on a regular basis, and people come and go in an organization, and you might have somebody brand new who doesn't understand what it is. The biggest part of this is don't be used by the prime for their benefit only. I recently had a small business come to me, and this small business was in our mentor protege, but the prime had just taken off and left the protege behind, and the protege had not done anything about it until reporting time. They didn't get the education that they had said they needed. They didn't receive the profit that what they were expecting from the relationship and from the projects that were out there. And it just became a really unfortunate situation, because that had to be reported and it looked bad on both sides. If you ever get into a situation with the government, and you have a situation where something goes bad or you fail at something, the best thing you can do is to fix it immediately, put processes in place so that it doesn't happen again, and then remember what you did. Because now I'm seeing even more RFPs out there that are asking for you to explain a situation where you failed and how you corrected it. So those lessons learned are something really important to keep track of. Okay, how do I get started? The next slide, please. Okay, so the mentor, like we talked about, is going to submit a package to get approved. Then once they're approved, and a mentor doesn't just have to be those approved mentors that you saw on the list. They can go in and submit the package to be approved, and then the two of you get together. But then the mentor has to go out and find a major buying command for sponsorship if they're asking for money, or they're asking for credit on their subcontracting program, which are two things that in this particular mentor protege program that they will be asking for. So then there's a tentative agreement between the mentor and the protege. The agreement is extremely detailed, and you need, as a small, neat business, you need to make sure it's extremely detailed with how many hours of training you're going to get, what your profits percentage is going to be, et cetera, et cetera. Then a formal mentor protege agreement is submitted, and then a standalone contract is issued to the mentor so that they can invoice for the money or for the credit to their subcontracting plan. So in the last 5 years, there have been 190 small business DoD Mentor Program agreements. So let's take a minute and talk about how do you find a mentor? So there are these really lucky people in life who go to the prom and they get married and they live happily ever after. Okay. I was not one of those. Okay. Um, like a marriage, you're not going to go to the prom and then you're going to get married the next day. And this program is the exact same thing. So everybody will tell you, you need to find industry events, you need to find educational events, and you do. You need to find those. If you're in construction or if you have an industry where there's a job walk, go to the job walks and see who the primes are and start talking to those primes. It is, you know, talk, talk, talk. So that's on one hand. When you go to an event such as the Alliance we have coming up early next year, if this is something that you're seriously looking at doing, do your research on who's attending, pick out 3 to 5 primes, and then go and talk to those. And your event's a success. Your time there is a success if you get to talk to those, and you will, between meeting at the booth and between the one-on-ones that we have at Alliance. You're probably going to eliminate 1 or 2, just like you eliminated 1 or 2 people out of your life before you got married, where your values didn't match. You know, the way you feel about money doesn't match. The way you approach people doesn't match. Follow up again and again and again. So that's one thing you can do in this hand. The other thing you can do is improve yourself and improve your company. And how do you do that? Well, you can become a speaker at an event. You can teach a class. You can pick one little niche and become an expert. Now, I've heard many times that more people fear public speaking than they fear death. So everybody in that audience knows that when you're up there speaking, that you're doing something really brave that they're probably not going to do. And I was at an event recently and I was thinking about this, and I looked around and the room was full of prime contractors. And there were 2 small businesses who took turns speaking. Those small businesses they didn't have to go out and hand out business cards and hand out capability statements, because everybody in the room heard them speaking and was able to walk away. You usually walk away with at least one thing from a speaker. So they're solidifying their knowledge, their expertise in the minds of those primes as being somebody who knows what they talk about. Okay. When I was a deputy for small business, I remember one event when I got back to my hotel room and I had collected over 600 business cards and capability statements. And as much as I didn't want it to happen, by the time I got to the end of that day, I had lost track of the beginning of that day with everybody. It's a really hard mental exercise to do that. And if you don't want to speak, then there are websites such as LinkedIn and different industry websites where you can write an article and post it, but be out there, become a known speaker, put yourself out there. So while you're out there checking back with the people that you want to talk to, you can ask them up front, how often do you want me to check back with you? Do you want me to check in with you on a monthly basis? Do you want to check in every 6 months? What works for you? Email, phone, how do you want to meet for coffee? What can we do? At the same time, be working on yourself so that when this all pulls together, it's going to be really good for you in a number of areas besides just this particular one. One of the clients that I work with actually found work through a mastermind group. There was a prime in one of her mastermind groups. She didn't end up working with that prime, but there's another big thing out there that a lot of small businesses do is when you're talking to someone, if they can't help you or when you finish the conversation, always ask them, who else should I meet with? Who do you know that I can meet with? Because I've been retired for a number of years and I still get calls from the Port of Los Angeles looking for service disabled small businesses who can do this and who can do that. So it's a big interconnected community. And I think it's really important for you to know that. and just be able to continue to do those relationships in any number of ways. I think that's what I have.
Well, thank you very much, Mary Jo, which leaves us 42 minutes for questions and other comments and general discussion. There is a question in the chat from John, and I don't know if John wants to unmute and ask a little bit more clarifying question, but the question in the chat says, I have a question regarding DoD projects that are conducted outside of the United States, specifically international federal contracts. And that might take us too far outside of the scope of today's session, but do you have any initial comments on that, Mary Jo?
I do. I actually I spent part of my career in Japan, part in a good part of it in Europe, actually during the first Iraq War. And it's every country the federal government has a status of forces agreement with, and it kind of depends upon what that agreement is and how those projects are going to go. So I don't know that I know how it works in those countries, but I don't know that I have a current up-to-date answer on that one, Tiffany. I might have to do some research on that, but depending upon what the government puts in place with the country, they might have a certain number of projects that have to go to local foreign companies, or there would be not a formal subcontracting plan because a lot of the FAR rules, once you leave the United States, don't apply. But there could be other agreements in place, and it varies wildly from country to country. That I do know.
Right.
Hi, Mary. Thank you so much, Tiffany. Mary, quick note. So I have partners in the AI, cloud, and connectivity in Japan, Vietnam, Turkey, Germany. These are top companies in the world. And if I become a prime contractor as a Horizon IoT and leverage these local companies in their country for U.S. existence, for NATO and other projects, would that be something like logical in terms of a strategy going after the federal contracts out of the state?
Okay, Tiffany, can you help me with what the question is there?
Yeah, I think we should probably
Okay.
just take that offline, John. I think it's going to take more clarifying questions as to your goals there.
Sure.
Yeah,
Thank you.
sorry.
It's okay. Thank you.
Yeah. It's funny in our world, we encounter a lot of businesses who have such good questions and such specific needs that it's just better to have that one-on-one conversation. So, John, where are you located?
I'm in Seattle,
Okay,
Northwest.
great. Wonderful.
Thanks.
Great.
Yeah, I'd be happy to help them who in Seattle research that one, Tiffany.
Okay, great, thanks. Okay, but I guess any other questions from the group here today? So as you're thinking, I'm putting into the chat an upcoming event for cybersecurity compliance. If you're interested in Department of Defense contracting, this might be something that would be of interest. The Department of Defense is moving forward with new requirements for your cybersecurity of your business, and complying with that will be the only way to move forward with doing business with them under most circumstances. I think commercial off-the-shelf items are still going to be exempt, but so if you're just selling pencils, you'll be fine. But anything else in there is going to require some more stringent cybersecurity than you might have now.
And I agree with Tiffany, that's really important. I'm seeing a lot of RFPs out there now that require you at least have a SPURS score, which is the very first part of it. And if you don't have that score, you're basically tossed out. And in talking to contracting officers, that's their first part of the responsibility check now, is to make sure you have that basic part of cybersecurity started, at least with the Navy here.
Right. The other event that I'm putting in there in a minute is our solicitation review, making go or no-go decisions. And that one's held in Bremerton with Mary Jo's office there. Are you leading that, or is Terry's leading that one?
It's leading that one.
Yeah, Terry Holmberg, another former federal contracting officer that has a depth of knowledge. So anyway, these are great opportunities to connect with members of our team and ask questions, but also kind of hear best practices for pursuing government contracts. The other thing I thought I would, in afterthought, should have included a slide on, Mary Jo, is the other mentor protege programs that are out there. So they're all very different. There's one with Washington State Department of Transportation that exists, where if you're interested in the transportation track, you could be paired with a mentor who will help you with a variety of things. And it's way less, I guess, stringent requirements. They hunt for proteges, and they hunt for, like, it's a little bit different flavor. But again, the most important thing is you have to know what you want out of that relationship and advocate for it. So if you're in transportation and you have a lack of bonding, or you can't afford the insurance or whatever it is, that kind of articulating that very clearly to the mentor would be very beneficial to both you and the mentor, so that you're not fumbling about. The other ones, mentor protege programs that exist are the Small Business Administration has a mentor protege program that used to be called the All Small, and they attempted to get all the mentor protege programs under one roof, and almost everyone followed into the corral, but there's some wandering sheep, including the Department of Defense program, as well as the Department of Energy program. So Department of Energy, US Department of Energy, has their own mentor protege program as well. So just to, keep your ears and eyes open of other opportunities, and know that these all have different flavors and purposes. But meeting with your Apex advisor and kind of fleshing out your strategy for growing your firm within public sector, and then using these as tools when appropriate, I think is usually the best strategy. So with that, I'll pause now and hear if there's any other questions or comments. Or go ahead, Marie.
Tiffany, I do have a number of clients who actually have set up their own mentor protege relationships and do their own agreements with somebody that's not, not an organizational type thing. And those seem to work pretty good too, as long as everybody knows what they want. That's a key.
Yeah.
There may be some benefits that they may not get as a result of setting it up, but there's definitely a lot of benefits that they do get with that, just doing a private one.
Yeah, without enrolling in some program or having some government oversight. And as long as you understand the rules related to, like, limitations on subcontracting or affiliation, some of these issues that you might get hung up on, it's absolutely could be a win-win. And that's what you're trying to create, is just a formal win-win agreement between you and the prime, right?
Good morning. I have a question. My name is Tony Hanen, Acacia Technology Group. And the question is related to, if you're a small company in technology and you would, by the way, the presentation is great. What is the best way to go about it to start that kind of relationship? And you very much covered that in the presentation, right? But if you are a technology type of a company and you're very small and you're new to this type of program, what is your recommendation?
Do you want me to?
Yeah, do you have anything to add to it that we haven't already discussed? I'm sure you do.
Well, so it starts with really sound market research, I think, Tony, especially if you're new to the marketplace. So understanding who buys what you sell in terms of government agency, and then following that money and that scope of work down the chain. So if your technology would be useful in US Navy operations, for example, you would follow kind of who are the big Navy primes that might benefit from your technology, and who are they getting that technology from now. And what's great about the public sector is that the information related to all this is usually public, unless it's confidential, but it's usually public, who government's buying from and how much. And so we can help you sleuth that out and figure that out. And then you have to kind of figure out your own unique proposition after that. So like, oh, they're getting, you know, I don't know what type of technology you do, Tony, but like say they're getting some AI technology from this company over here and yours is way better. You could go ahead and make that pitch to that contractor, you know, whoever that is, or directly to the agency and see if that works. And sometimes it is making the pitch because they don't understand the new capability that you can offer. And that's the whole other thing. Other times it's waiting for the RFP to come out where you can respond.
Great. And what about the being a subcontractor? I do see the list and you do have like Boeing and you have some other companies and so on, but sometimes a lot of those companies, there might not be technology focus, right? Maybe the technology part is only 5% of what they do and the other things are the major, groups where they focus the work on. So if I'm a subcontractor in technology and I want to hone in on certain companies that really focus on technology, is there a way to sift through that? Because, like I said, Boeing is huge and, maybe what they're looking for is very tiny when it comes to software technology, because what I offer is services, right? So
Okay.
I don't go and build products. I go and provide IT services and stuff like that.
Yeah. Mary Jo, did you have any tips for that?
I'm just trying to think of all the different things that we offer. Like for instance, over here in Kitsap, we do a virtual meeting with the primes the second Wednesday of every month. And I think that, correct me if I'm wrong, Tiffany, but I think throughout the APACs, we do a lot of that. But again, if you could work with one of us counselors and kind of narrow down specifically what you're looking for, we could help guide you to where you're going after what you need and not wasting a bunch of time just going out everywhere. That's always our goal.
Yeah,
that would
honing
be
that
great.
in.
Yeah, if you can provide some link or
Sure.
anything like that, that would be great. And that's exactly what I'm trying to do is I'm just trying to reduce the amount of search that is going to take to figure out what is the right path.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Okay. Where are you based out of, Tony?
I'm actually in Bellevue, Washington.
In where?
Bellevue, Seattle.
Bellevue. Oh, yeah, I've been there. Great. I'll probably pair you with Melinda or Daryl, who run our King County office, and they can meet with you. And this goes for everybody. Like we have 17 advisors across the state. And then if you're outside state lines, we have our colleagues across state lines that can help you too. And that first meeting is a discovery meeting. It's, how does your technology fit into the marketplace? How does your service fit into the marketplace? So you can develop a capture management strategy around that. Without that market research that's meaningful to you first as a first step, it's a big, crazy, chaotic place, and you can waste a lot of time dancing around in it. So honing that down and picking 2 or 3 to pursue and prioritizing those opportunities is going to be beneficial.
Awesome. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
And also a lot of the agencies are still doing virtual meetings, where once you figure out who it is that you want to market to, a lot of them are doing virtual meetings, like Department of Energy is, and of course every agency has multiple bureaus or whatever they want to call them within the agency. So you kind of also have to understand the agency and who it is that you want to talk to. But you can go online and sign up and attend a virtual meeting also with a lot of them. It's not that you need to get out and go to a lot of places, luckily these days, as it is you can still get out there.
And the best way to get on those meetings is through APAC, right?
We can help you find the meetings. Go ahead, Tiffany.
Yeah, exactly. We can help you hone in on who you'd want to meet with, and then work with you on your capability briefing delivery. So kind of do a dress rehearsal in a safe environment with us, and we can provide tips and suggestions to make it better. But then after that, you're on your own to go into that meeting, and we call them capability briefings or whatever. And then we'll debrief with you after, like what are the next steps? How did it go? What questions did they ask? And kind of formulate a strategy after that. Is that where you were headed with that, Mary Jo?
Yeah, that is. I think a lot of the role playing that we do before they actually go into the briefing seems to help a lot.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, sometimes, especially with innovative firms, I don't know how many of you are in the innovative space necessarily, but it's really tempting to focus on the technology and the science and the engineering, and forget to mention what problem all of that solves. And so then you're in a meeting talking about math equations or whatever it is. I've seen it. And then the person on the other side just kind of gets glazy and they're not tracking as to how they could benefit from that. So anyway, like doing a dress rehearsal with a trusted advisor is always a good idea. So,
And that's also part of the process, is we will help you understand that the people you may be presenting to may not be the technical people at all.
right.
Okay, so you've got to get past that person to get to the technical people. And that's something that we usually discuss with you also.
Right. Yeah, well, good. Well, thank you all for coming, and we hope that this kind of gave you an understanding of the DoD Mentor Protege Program and an idea of how Apex accelerators might help you grow your business in the public sector. We'll hang on for another minute or two. I'll go ahead and stop recording, and maybe if you have any other questions or anything that might come up, you're welcome to go ahead. Oh yeah, go ahead, Keita.
I do have one